meeting to order. Sit, pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. We'll do a little housekeeping here. I do want to get an attendance. Richard Way, Hank Dye, and who else are we missing?
Katie.
And Katie. Okay. For the record. We do have the minutes from Welcome Back to America. Our right-hand woman over here, Christina Delaney, and she has the minutes from the August 20th meeting. I'll give you a few seconds to look over those. They're in your packet. See if there's any omissions or corrections. Any questions? Do I have a motion to accept the minutes?
I'll get a question wait a minute. For
Okay.
a second. So
Sure.
the item number 6 under SE group timeline, this is accurate to the meeting we had at the last point, so it's accurate at the meeting. That date has now changed a little bit. We should should we keep that in the existing minutes if they were accurate to the last meeting, or do we want to update that with the updated information we had at our internal?
So, yeah, it reflects the August 20th
Perfect.
meeting. So that language will stand, be changed in the next one. Do I have a motion to accept the minutes?
Motion to accept the minutes.
Second.
I'll second.
All in favor?
All right.
Minutes accepted. Passed. Okay, we are to the point where we're on call with our consultant. We're gaining a lot of ground. We've been doing some conference calling, some committee workshops, chats, as I guess we will call them. And I'll turn it over to Ida. Are you? I see.
I'm here and ready.
You're here and
Chair,
ready?
thank you so much.
Okay, everybody here okay? And they're up on the screen? And Kim, are you?
Yes,
Okay, we have them
I'm here.
remotely. Okay, Ida, go ahead, bring us up to date.
Thank you so much. And I could ask Houston to, at your convenience, share the slide deck we've prepared to kind of help guide this conversation. That'd be fantastic. And then if you could share screen at your convenience, that would help me out.
Am I in anybody's way? I can get off that. I'm not really a
I
person.
really appreciate Houston's help with this. I am on the road, so I appreciate the assistance.
All right.
Perfect. Then we can click slideshow and present, and then we'll rock and roll.
Yeah, only one. So.
You on your
Okay.
bottom corner. Over one.
That's fine. All
Yes, right there.
right.
Perfect. Team effort, and then we'll hit the next slide. Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for gathering here this evening on what I'm sure is a beautiful afternoon in Townsend. Today, I'd like to share with you a few updates. One, we have received an incredible amount of thoughtful and thought-provoking survey responses. So I'll be sharing a brief survey update, as well as sharing next steps for how we are reviewing and disseminating that information. I'll then have a brief conversation regarding how that data will be turned and shaped with your support and engagement into our vision statement for the City of Townsend. And then lastly, I have an exciting update to share with you regarding our next in-person meeting opportunities, which will be in October in Townsend. So we'll get there shortly. And if we could go to the next slide, please. So we received 849 total responses with a 92% completion rate during the course of this survey. And primarily that audience were Townsend residents, Blood County residents from the broader zip code, and some percentage of visitors as well. We were very impressed with this response, with this engagement, and the level of care and consideration that the respondents brought to the table. So thank you for that. Next slide. Some of the key elements that I wanted to highlight for you today, and again, we will be continuing to delve into these and share broader insight, but something that really stood out to myself and the team behind me is the alignment with the peaceful small town atmosphere that is so important to both the visitors and the residents of the city of Townsend. We also had a very aligned vision for the way tourism is managed in the city and broader region. Also strong alignment for a slow and controlled approach to development, limiting growth to preserve Townsend's character. That was very much paired with support for locally owned businesses and thinking about ways to embrace the peaceful nature, if you will, of Townsend's character while providing a healthy business environment for locally owned and engaged businesses. There was also strong alignment and language around the importance of transparent governance in this process and increased communication between local officials and the community themselves, which I think we'll see throughout this process. And lastly, drawing attention to the portion of residents who are interested in having discussions around affordable housing opportunities, specifically for families and hospitality support staff. Next slide, please. I want to tell you a little more about kind of who responded to the survey and who didn't. So as you can see by the graph on the right, we have an overwhelming amount of response from our 55 and up group, which is reflective of the population. We do, however, think it's really important to take some time to engage our younger audience, thinking about the 18 to 28 demographic, around what they are interested in seeing in Townsend, both as residents and visitors. So part of our next steps, which we can go to the next slide for, will be thinking about how we can further integrate and engage with some of the audiences that weren't as well represented in the initial survey. So I mentioned before the very concise alignment that we saw with visitors and residents in the nature of Townsend, the elements of the peaceful side of Smokey's character. And this kind of alignment is, I think, a really positive thing, and also shows that the branding language that you all have shared and adopted, and the communication that you've shared is landing and resonating. And I think part of this plan's task be continuing to give voice and showcase the opportunity to align with the desires of the residents, the leadership, and the visitors of the city in a way that allows continued support and managed business directives. Next slide, please. So here I just wanted to tell you a little more about thinking about that 18 to 25 population and the engagement possibilities here. I think this speaks well to some of the conversations that we've had to date around youth of the region and young families of the region, and how to align more with what makes Townsend a great place to call home. Lastly, incorporating further survey results and feedback and then providing them back out. So it is our goal as a team, this is actively underway now, to produce a document that evaluates all of the answers that we've received through the survey process, and And we will be producing and sharing back out with all the survey respondents kind of how their opinions and thought-provoking answers aligned, and what we as the planners are observing and able to showcase and disseminate based on what makes Townsend so special, what its role and position within the community and the broader tourism region, and also how this community to support you all through this planning process. Next slide, please. From here, I'd like to share a little more about our visioning strategy. As you may recall, there was questions in the survey that were very closely aligned to how Townsend envisions itself and where it would like to be in the future, and how to craft language around those elements to make sure that we are continuing to be aligned with the directive of the cities of Townsend, the citizens of Townsend, and aware and engaging with the needs of visitors in a way that aligns as well. So, important, it needs to provide clear direction and purpose. It needs to inspire and motivate stakeholders. It needs to define success and benchmarks. It will help to shape and the plan framework. So the plan that we will be producing in partnership with Kim and his team at ETDD will be shaped by this co-created vision statement that we'll be working on as our next task. This vision statement should also enhance communication and buy-in and ensure a long-term perspective by city residents and leadership that is shared. Next slide, please. Thank you. So what goes into the making of the vision statement? How is this crafted? It needs to be used to develop different opportunity areas, and each opportunity area that it represents has to have a specific goal contained in the vision statement. And then those opportunities will provide practical, actionable recommendations that will be supported in the plan itself in order to move forward. So with that being said, we can go to the next slide and think about how, and this is the initial kind of feedback that we'd like to share with you, the elements of the over 800 respondents that we received that does have strong alignment in the following areas: the preservation of the peace and serenity of Townsend, the privilege to protect and support natural habitats and the diverse flora and fauna, the plants and animals that enrich the community's lives, the opportunity to nurture a close-knit community where residents have a strong sense of belonging, connection, and support, the role you play as a tourism destination and welcoming visitors to the beauty and tranquility of Townsend by inviting them to experience the peaceful side of the Smokies responsibly and respectfully. The opportunity to foster a vibrant local economy that supports homegrown businesses and provides opportunities for all to prosper. The role of embracing thoughtful and measured growth that enhances the community without compromising its character or its natural resources. The role of leadership to create infrastructure and amenities that benefit both residents and visitors, that promotes accessibility, walkability, bikeability, and access to outdoor recreation. And then the role of the community to celebrate the rich cultural heritage from our earliest Native American communities to the pioneers of Cades Cove, and the privilege to showcase these stories through our museums, our trails, and our interpretive displays. Next slide, please. So, with that being said, I will have a few minutes here today to kind of share feedback and engage on some of these slides and share what our next steps will be to continue to process this. But I'm very excited on behalf of my role as a plan and in partnership with CPAC to share that the SE group team, as well as the ETVD team, will be on site in Townsend on October 18th for a variety of meetings. And this is important importantly, a meeting that will be open to the full public and all survey respondents. That will be held from 4:30 to 6:30 at the Heritage Center on October 18th. So I'll pause there, Mr. Chair, and hand the floor back to you, and happy to ask any questions or go back through some slides if that is helpful.
Yeah, thanks, Ida. I'd like to recognize the mayor for some comments.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Ida. Really impressed by all these survey results that we've seen. So 800 or so completed surveys. That's pretty amazing, considering we have, 553 people in the city and maybe 2,500 people in our greater Tuckaleechee community. So I'm really gratified that this was a robust survey. Also, I think it affirms a lot of the things that I've heard that I thought I knew, but it's really good to see, I think some of the priorities and things of our residents. And so a number of those points certainly resonated with me. And so while not a surprise necessarily, I think it is important that, these are the values that folks hold in Townsend. So I really support that. I think, these will provide the anchors that we need for the update of the community plan and will be a foundation for all the guidance and all the policy decisions that we need to be able to implement. So I know it's just the first step was taking the survey, but I was really encouraged, I think, by starting to see how these elements that our residents have contributed will start to fit together for a vision for the city of Townsend.
Well, they're definitely putting them in. We have 1, 2, 3, 8 different lanes. We're kind of getting all the comments sorted out. I do agree with you, Mr. Mayor, on the commonality. It seems like everyone's headed in the same direction. Committee comments, questions?
Yeah, I've got one. Ida, could you help us, could you walk us through a little bit more about the October 18th event? Just because we've talked about it a little bit, but that's really something that you guys are going to drive in terms of the SE group. And can you kind of tell the crowd that we have here about like just the high level structure and kind of touch on whether or not it's a event where you need to be at for 2 hours, or if it's just a drop by event, and just kind of give us the high level framework for how you're going to structure that meeting.
Thanks, Houston. Great question. So this is the first announcement of this open house activity, and I have prepared and have approval from the CAPC committee to send out a full update tomorrow that will detail the opportunity to engage. So what to expect on the 18th, which is a Friday evening in the middle of fall. I'm well aware that I'm cutting into some of your potential football time here, but we would love to invite you to engage with the planning committee members as well as the consultant staff on the 18th for around 30 minutes. This will be a drop-in meeting that will give you opportunities to interact with facilitation boards that will ask additional questions that will build on the narrative that we have crafted given your survey responses. That will be an opportunity to interact in person with planning committee members and share your thoughts and ideas, and also to interact with the CPAC committee members in this context as well, in a way that we can continue to grow and craft and incorporate all the ideas of the community into this planning process. At that time, we will also have the complete breakdown and printed copies of the survey narrative and responses that we'll be sharing out in terms of a takeaway with the broader community as well. So it'll be a great touchstone. There'll be refreshments and opportunities to interact and communicate with your neighbors and friends, as well as to engage with these boards and with the planning committee members and the staff of the planning team as well.
Mayor?
Yeah, thanks, Ida. I'm really excited about that event as well. It sounds like it's going to be another opportunity to get feedback on the vision. So is the intent that we'll have some of these elements that you shared a little bit more developed, that folks could comment on those and maybe start to coalesce around a vision statement or a few different drafts? What's the thinking?
Very much so, Mr. Mayor, thank you for that question. So we will have, in partnership with the CPAC committee, flush out continued elements of the vision statement and be, if not there, very close to a vision statement draft that we really want community input on. As they have disclosed throughout this process, the community's feedback and support and really pride of place and recognition of themselves in the vision statement is vital to the success of this process. So the reason I'm hesitant to say locked in final vision statement is because of that importance to have that community buy-in. But we will have vision statements prepared and ready to review, mock up, make notes on, and engage with at that meeting. Mr. Mayor, thank you.
Ida, you mentioned working with ETDD on code process on the vision statement. Kim, if you're on with us, or Ida, both of you, some input on have you started that communication? Where are you? What kind of timeline do you see? And what does that look like on your side?
Definitely. Kim, if you'd like to start.
Sure.
Every time our meeting that we had, was it?
Yes, we have started doing the economic research, and we hope to have something to report out, though not in terms of a finished product, by the 18th. So that is basically looking at the socioeconomic data about housing and family, let's say, and population demographics, among other things. So that has started, and we will work to, by the end of the year, have a full online document of some sort with all that data that will feed into the new year when the actual plan is being done. So in that regard, I have met with Ida on that and shown her our initial efforts to get that information out there. The second thing that we're doing is I already started, as I mentioned earlier, scrubbing the documents to see, and when I say the document, I mean the land use transportation plan, to basically give some analysis to it, and then to figure out ways in which we can pare it down into a toolbox, as I keep mentioning that we'll hope to do. The toolbox essentially will be yardsticks where everything regarding how you want to control development of your land and of your town physically, in terms of zoning, land use, whatever else, will be put into something where things could be revisited to make sure that the goals and the intentions of what you plan to realize in terms of development are being paced, monitored, and evaluated. So that is another thing that we'll be doing in terms of the land use plan. And one of the things that we would want to focus on at the open house is to figure out, especially one of the things we want to focus on is the idea of definitions. What definitions do you want to have that will then focus on the main idea that you want to make sure that those definitions address the nuisances that you want to avoid, so you come up with a way to mitigate the nuisances more so than to argue over the definitions that are indeterminable in your documents, so that you have a clear vision of how to monitor, control, police those particular development pressures that will come to your community. I don't know if you want to talk about anything or say.
Just a big thank you to Kim and his whole team. I think that we are now heading into month 3 of this cleaning process, and he's been just a joy to work with, and you have quite the advocate and knowledgeable resource for the city of Townsend. So thank you for this opportunity to partner together.
Thank you too. Much appreciated.
It's the dream team. I told you guys. Committee, any questions for Ida and Kim?
I've got one for Kim. Ken, you brought up the word nuisances here, and, think defining what we want to avoid. I'm curious if that's something that, our surveys and our work with the SE group are going to, basically bring to light through that facilitation or any sort of meeting there, or if that's a workshop of sorts that you might be able to facilitate for us, to make sure that we're defining nuisances or, things we don't want to happen, properly.
Yes, so basically, the thing here is that we will first start out with the open house, where we'll get some fresh, some initial opinions, more so verbally, in, of, and above and beyond the surveys. So the idea is that when we say that these are certain things we want to control, these are certain things we want to achieve in terms of, keeping the place a small town, supporting businesses, and supporting local businesses as against tourism-centered businesses. What do those things mean? And if tourism-centered businesses, it's considered to be a potential nuisance, what exactly are we talking about? So that the barometer comes with discerning what the nuisance is with what you want to control, rather than it be associated with an emotional fear of what that might be. So for example, to give a generic example, as an example, if you say that you want to control hospitality, short-term rentals in people's homes that are not basically in an HOA. You might want to say that, and I'm not saying that this is an example to adapt, but it's an example to explain. So the idea there being is that if there's nothing like an HOA or a covenant and controlling that, do we then want to concentrate on the idea of what that nuisance might be? The nuisance would be abundant parking at a particular person's home, noise levels. It would mean keeping the place kept. It would mean maybe making sure that they get registered as a business. It would mean that they should have to pay taxes on any income that they derive from that particular use in that particular residence. So those are sort of things that you would put in place to make sure that there's good oversight and management. There are no undue nuisances dealing with parking or noise, that the place is kept clean in terms of there not being any litter, for example. So those are things that we would put in place to make sure it doesn't become a nuisance. That's one example of how we would want to. So that, and another one I could give is, let's say we had this same sort of exercise in Danwood where somebody wanted to put in a rock crushing facility right in the middle of town. So the question is that you don't have anything on the books for that. You already have a pre-existing one there. So the question is, what constitutes that nuisance? You can say that certain noise levels at a certain distance from the neighborhoods should be abated or should be policed. Any sort of dust level. So then you can then come up with parameters of what constitutes a nuisance to make sure that if they go above and beyond those measured nuisances at that threshold, then become a nuisance. Therefore, they could be policed, and therefore they could be shut down or exacted with punitive measures.
It's important to understand, some of the issues that our residents see. So my guess is we're collecting, as we do these surveys and collecting input, we are probably generating lists of issues that concern our residents, and we need to make sure that we have those so that at the right stage of the planning, we can be sure that we address those to the extent that the community plan will be able to do that. So I think in terms of visioning and for what we're doing on the open house, it's also probably important to keep focused on what people do want. And so what I saw in the survey is a lot of things that our residents do want. And so we need to make sure that we've got, a good balance, I would think, at the open house. So it's important to note, the things that concern our residents so that we can take them into to account, but we want to make sure that we balance on the things that our residents do want to see. Clean water, dark skies, other things that were
Yes.
noted in the survey, so.
Committee, any more questions? I'm going to open up to the audience. Anybody have any questions, please come to the mic. Ida, Kim, we're going to open it up to for public comment.
Sure.
Yeah. Pat Jenkins, this meeting is on a Friday evening.
Mhm.
It's a school day, and I believe it's a football night.
Every night's a football.
Are we
night.
trying to jam it between those two, or would it be better on a Thursday night or something like that? That's my question.
We did discuss that. That is going to be an away game for Heritage. And we did want to make sure that the parents were able to get there after school and before evening commitments.
Good question. Anybody? Come to the mic. Your name?
Jeff Riddle, 134 Myers. Previous meetings, there was talking about small groups. Are those small groups that y'all were talking about, that part of, in the open house?
Yeah, so I think the small groups was in a discussion forum that we had where we were just kind of throwing a lot of things out on the table. Good question, I appreciate that. Kim, Ida, for October 18th, do you see any, I know we had kind of conversed that a little bit, some breakouts and stuff like that. What do you guys see? One big room addressing questions or?
Yes, for the open house, we think we'll have a good flow of guests throughout the evening from the 4:30 to 6:30 time period. And during that time, I'm happy to, have questions we're engaging around the board activities themselves in a way that can support that one-on-one conversation design. I think, beyond that, we are making efforts to continue to engage with some other leaders in the community on our site there, and we are also continuing to make really strong use of our time in Townsend over the course of the day on the 18th and the morning of the 19th to make sure that the planners at SC Group have the time to visit some of the local tourism assets and meet with the leadership therein while we're on site. So yes, thank you for that question.
So we're thinking people are gonna kind of come and get their question answered, and then go about their business. There'll be, people coming and going. It's not one big sit-down presentation is what you're saying?
That's correct.
It's your vision. Questions?
Yeah, we expect including grabbing a snack and saying hi to some folks about a 30-minute time request. And I would ask, if I may, that I'll be working with the City of Townsend to release the flyer tomorrow afternoon, in addition to sharing it on social media. And if I could ask those of you assembled to support sharing that information, it'd be greatly appreciated.
Question? This strange lady sitting in the front row. Who are you?
Yes, I am very strange, but I try to be, not to be.
How are you doing?
I just have a question.
Sure.
He commented 800 something responses to the survey. Are we going to be able to assess those as out-of-state people, as out-of-town people, as residents, as non-residents, so that we can weigh those as we should, as we try to plan the vision statement for Townsend?
Yeah, and that was the big part of the having it done this way. Go ahead, Ida.
Yes, ma'am, completely. And as I shared, part of the request and next steps for us will be disseminating our documentation of who that narrative is coming from and our professional opinion on how it relates to the future of Townsend through the planning process. So that information will all be disseminated back out to the community in around a month's time.
Can I do a follow-up on hers?
Yeah.
Try.
We have one more. We got another question. Go ahead.
This is Pat Jenkins again. Sandy just asked a good question. She's talking about how do we know how many are residents, how many are tourists, how many And the last time I asked that question, I got the impression, because when I took the survey, it didn't ask me where I lived.
It doesn't have to.
And so the answer I got was where your cell phone pinged.
Yeah, so it picks up an I
So
think
if I-
it's
so
an
if
IP
I-
address. isn't
Can I
it?
finish? So if I filled it out in Maryville at a coffee shop, I didn't count as a citizen. If I was a tourist and I filled it out at the Townsend coffee shop, I was counted as a resident. Is that right?
No, sir. Question number 2 asked respondents to identify as a resident of the city of Townsend, a resident of the zip code, a resident of Blount County as a whole, or a visitor to the region. And based on your response therein, you are asked to engage at different levels. And all of that has been documented, and I'm happy to continue to share that with those who are interested in seeing more detailed information.
Good. Follow-up
I
question?
guess I still don't remember being asked whether I lived in Townsend or not, but she says I was, so I guess it's my old man memory.
Any more questions?
I
Christine?
actually added a couple more questions to that, so I remembered that there was, like, if you're in the area, if you're in Maryville, if you're just
Yeah.
visiting.
That was the big thing, like what Sandy brought up, Matt brought up. That was the big thing when we started having this conversation with Ida, is we wanted to make sure that we were addressing the people in the area, the 3782, the actual city residences, the tourist base, et cetera, the Blount County. And so come on to the mic, state your name.
My name is Donna Thrasher, and there's a lot of information on the slides. Is that going to be provided on the website for this meeting and going forward? Because this is
You want a copy?
well, because we're here, but what about if people could not attend? Is it going to be on the website?
It's being recorded.
Okay.
I don't know if are we putting all this on the,
I think we're going to put this.
we'll have it available, yeah.
I think it's gonna be available at the open house, is that what she said?
Yeah.
All the answers?
Yes, ma'am. And if that's the will of the CPAC committee, I'm happy to specifically share the next steps, which of course will be updated momentarily, and then the kind of vision statement elements as kind of an initial point of conversation. If that's the request of the CPAC committee, I'm happy to make that a priority for next week.
Yeah, transparency is what we're all about. Yeah, good question, thank you. Anybody else? Commissioner? Questions?
Questions right now.
Okay, all right, back to the committee. Ida, Kent, Mayor, any final
Well,
comments?
I did have one more point that I think you addressed earlier in looking at the survey results, and that's how are we going to get more thought and opinion from younger folks?
Yeah.
So,
Yes.
I mean, we can try to encourage them to come to the open house, but I mean, that's a pretty big,
I
chunk
wonder
of folks.
if we could do it, I see Jill back there, and that kind of brings up a point. I wonder if we can kind of do this, maybe Townsend youth group based, that's kind of the biggest, target, I guess, for that age bracket, 18 to 28. Would be maybe addressing the churches, because we don't have an active bar scene here in Townsend, so.
I think it would be worthwhile to spend a little bit more time thinking
Yeah.
about that. I mean, that's a significant
comment,
chunk
yeah.
of our residents, so if there's
Yeah,
a way
I
to
mean,
get some of this
1%
money.
that came in at, and then if you even look at the age group above that, it only came in at 6%, so 35 and under. So, yeah, we need some more input.
Maybe at the elementary school, you could get, maybe those kids have elementary school students.
There you go. All right, any other comments? Ida, Kim, any final comments before we push the exit button on you guys?
No.
That's all. Thank you for the opportunity to share, and looking forward to seeing you all in person here in about a month.
We appreciate
Thank you.
all that you are doing for the city of Townsend.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you all for coming.
Okay, always good information. I've really appreciated the last couple months at this section. I'm ready to move on to the next one, but this has really been engaging, seeing 849 responses. It is good, Mr. Mayor, to get to see this 18 to 28 age groups, the responses, where it's coming from.
One of the things that I observed is that there is some congruence between what our residents want and what our visitors want. So I think, it's important, our character is the reason that people move here, to live here. It's the reason they want to come and visit and spend time in Townsend. And so I think, whether you're a resident or you're a visitor, it seems like there's quite a bit of congruence there. And so I think, that's one thing that I think we really ought to keep in mind as we look at the survey results. And as we think about what is the unique character of Townsend. Ultimately, I think we all want to end up with something that, is fit for us and doesn't necessarily seek to replicate the other side of the mountain or something like that. So I thought that was a real interesting observation that, visitors that come to Townsend, they have a choice somewhere to come. And the things that they come here for are some of the same things that, we like to have here as residents.
Absolutely, absolutely. Any other comments? Hank? Comments, questions? Good? Okay. All right, good update. I think we are on the October 18th event, the 4:30 to 6:30. Friday evening at the Heritage Center. We'll probably have, maybe, it'll be obvious that where it's going to be. I'm not that familiar with the Heritage Center, but there's only one way in, one way out.
Yes, it'll be in the amphitheater.
In the amphitheater, okay, we'll have some directional signs, I would say. Okay, all right. Mayor, any final comments? Houston, Christina?
I'd just say, Mr. Chairman, I'm glad that we're proceeding. There's some substantive work that's been done already. I was really glad to hear that ETDD is proceeding in parallel, developing that economic analysis. And so we had talked, you all remember a while back, if we're going to get this completed by next summer, then we need to be running some of these things in parallel. And so that economic analysis, the demographics, the infrastructure, all those things, I was looking at my phone to see what the different sections of the land use and transportation plan are, and there's sections 3, 4 are really where that information comes into play. And so once we have the vision will guide everything else that we do, particularly these opportunity areas, which really are the policy objectives that you'll have in the land use and transportation plan. So by, after Christmas, I can imagine that we'll be digging in to the text. So what I think ETDD means when they said that they're scrubbing the document is they're looking at the current land use and transportation plan, finding all those places where they need to update population numbers, water supply numbers, all those types of things. And then we will take, at some point, maybe around the first of the year, all these things that we've heard from our residents that will be encapsulated in the vision statement to really start to, what are those things that will help us to establish the land use policies and things that will need to guide us for the next 20 years.
Absolutely, it's come along finely, very fine. Any final comments from the community? On our agenda, we have a section here, 6, go to the community. Any general comments for Community Plan Advisory Committee? Okay, I have a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Motion to adjourn?
Second?
I'll second it.
All in favor? Meeting adjourned.